Today is Thursday, March 14th. The New York Jets are in the middle of their offseason as free agency officially started on Monday when the legal tampering period started. And we're here to talk about it with Frankie and Ryan from UStadium. Frankie, how you doing, man?
Ryan, I'm doing great, man. It was almost 70 degrees today. I'm feeling the summer vibes. I'm ready to go, though. Let's talk these Jets, baby. Let's freaking go. Let's go. Free agency,
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, listen, I think you're a little more fired up than what the Jets actually were in the start of free agency when legal tampering started. However, they did make a couple moves and they continue to make a couple moves, and the news continues to churn out with this team as usual. But let's start, Frankie, with how you would grade this offseason thus far with the moves that they made already to this point. How are you feeling of how the Jets have attacked this free agency thus far?
You know what, man? After the first 2 days, I was a little bit concerned. I didn't think that we picked up the players that we were expecting to as a fan base, and we didn't get guys, especially on the O line, to start the first 2 days of free agency that I thought could bring us to a Super Bowl. I mean, that's what this is about, man. We got Aaron Rodgers coming back. We have 2 years. He says three. It's realistically two to win a Super Bowl. So I wanted guys like Mike Onwenu. I wanted Robert Hunt. I wanted Tyron Smith, who's, by the way, still available. I wanted one of these guys because we have to protect Aaron. And coming away with John Simpson and me was a good move. Wasn't a bad move at all. But I wanted more. And after 2 days, I gave us a C. But everything changed when we traded for my man, Morgan Moses. That took us from a C to a B minus. So I'm at a B minus right now because I think the Morgan Moses trade, our 112th pick, goes to Baltimore. They give us 134. So we swap fourth round picks and we give them our sixth. It allows us to do whatever we want with our 10th overall pick because George Fan. I'm thinking of George Fan. Morgan, I want George Fan, by the way. Morgan Moses is an above average right tackle. So we filled right tackle. We filled left guard. AVT's our right guard. Tittman's the center, and things are starting to look clear. It looks like we got a wall up front for Aaron. This is great. So I like the Morgan Moses signing big time. And I want George Fant, by the way, also. If we could get him back, I want him back just as insurance.
You want to bring the whole band back together from Joe Douglas's
I
2021
want the
year,
whole
huh?
goddamn band together. Bring them back, baby. Let's go. They
Well,
were
I
good.
think what
They sounded good.
well, I think what's interesting is that you put it as a B minus thus far. I would agree. I think it's still a C for me, considering you lost Bryce Huff in free agency. The huge mismanagement that they had there in that position, not trading him last year when you had offers on the table from plenty of people reporting that you didn't trade him, right? You didn't franchise tag him, you didn't transition tag him, you just decided to let him walk. And at $17 million a year, it felt like you just lost a homegrown, undrafted player to a contract that the Jets probably could have taken on. It feels like I know they only had 26 million going in cap space as free agency was starting, but there are ways around that. You know, you see things like today with CJ Mosley agreeing to a restructured contract, saving close to, I think it was 12 or maybe even $13 million, even more in the cap space. That is possible with this franchise. You can work your way around the cap. So I think that Bryce Huff going to the Eagles hurt a little bit more on what this offseason was because you did lose a 10-sack guy who gets a lot of pressure on, and we talked about him and how much impact he was on this Jets defense. You haven't replaced that production yet. You know, you brought in Javon Kinlaw, a guy who's ultra talented, but never has put it together and has been often injured thus far in his career, right? So with Kinlaw, you're like, okay, he's a nice defensive tackle. He's going to be part of that defensive line rotation. He played well towards the end of last season, showed some signs of life, but you don't know. That's a little bit of a risk. And at $7 million guaranteed, it's ultra risky, in my opinion, for paying a defensive tackle that when you have other needs
Yeah,
in
it's a little too
defensive
much,
and
man.
on that
But
defensive side of the ball, you have other needs, right? You need another edge rusher to replace Bryce Huff. You need two safeties, probably. I know you brought back Chuck Clark, but you lost Whitehead. You're probably going to lose Ashton Davis if you don't re-sign him. So that was a little negative side. Obviously, the positives you hit on big time there. Signing Simpson as your starting left guard, a guy who really came into his own last year with the Baltimore Ravens, and then trading for Morgan Moses. You made a great point, Frankie. This offensive line is starting to take shape, and we're seeing
yeah,
proven veteran pieces that are durable and that can actually block for Aaron Rodgers and protect him. That key piece, though, is still that left tackle, and they still haven't answered that position yet. But before I get to that left tackle question there for you, I also want to address the other things the Jets have done. And I think this is all being overlooked a little too much, and it shouldn't be. Tyrod Taylor is your backup quarterback now for the New York Jets. They signed him to a 2-year deal. Now, I know Tyrod Taylor had his moments where he holds on to the ball too long. I know there's concerns about that, but the things that I am looking forward to is that if and when Aaron Rodgers does go down, as long as he's not vice president of the United States by then, if and when he does go down in the next season,
What do you mean
you're
if
going to have a
and
proven.
when? What do you mean? You're projecting he is going to go down?
Yeah,
You're
I
not
think a
thinking
40-year-old
17?
quarterback, coming off an Achilles injury. I
Hey,
have my.
Achilles is a freak injury though, man. Give Aaron his props. He
I hope
always
so.
plays in his
And
career.
listen, they're building that offensive line to protect him, so hopefully he doesn't
Yeah,
get hurt. But he is a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a major injury. There's concerns there with the injury, considering he also had the thumb injury 2 years ago. So again, I'm just saying, if and when he goes down, you have a proven veteran, something the Jets haven't had in years, in my opinion, besides Joe Flacco. This actually gives me a little bit of assurances of Tyrod Taylor can create. He can create offense. He's mobile. He has a great deep ball accuracy, in my opinion. He can stretch the field with some of these receivers. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops. And then the last thing I really want to hit on real quick before I talk about left tackle, you brought back your two special teamers and Greg Zerloin and Thomas Morstead. Those are huge pieces for this Jets team. I
big
don't care what anyone
W's, man.
says.
Big W's.
Morstead was an X factor for that Jets team. Hopefully, there won't be as much punting this year with Aaron Rodgers running the show, but those were big re-signings to bring back those guys. And I think that's something that's overlooked again when you look at these free agency and how
Definitely.
you bring back certain guys, let other guys walk. So that's what I wanted to hit on there. But let's talk about this left tackle position. You talked about Tyron Smith still out there, big name free agent, a guy who will probably command a decent sized contract. The Jets, we haven't seen them go into that top tier market for offensive line, right? Because they haven't invested that big money. So do you see the Jets moving forward here with the offensive line? Are they going to stick with let's draft a tackle at 10 and go that route? Or are they going to do let's go get Tyron Smith, solidify this offensive line finally, and then probably bring in a George Fant? But I think it's going to be David Bakhtiari is going to be your insurance policy at the end of the day. How do you see that playing out?
Well, this is the reality, right? So we found out through UStadium that the Jets inquired about these top guards, the Robert Hunts, the Glasgows, the
Jonah Jackson.
Jonah Jacksons, Mike Onwenu, and the Jets basically got priced out. So we found out that they got priced out. Robert Hunt gets $100 million. Even the kid from Carolina got $53 million. Carolina signed him to Damian Lewis. So the Jets got priced out of the guard market. I also think the Jets are getting priced out of the tackle market. I don't think the Jets are going to go and give Tyron Smith the amount of money he wants. I don't even think they're going to give Trent Brown the amount of money that he wants. What the Jets are going to do, and it's a smart strategy, is you bring in Aaron's best friend. Now, granted, I know about the injuries. We've heard it 1,000,001 times. I know he's got bone-on-bone thing going on in his knee. I'm sure the Jets doctors know this too, FYI. So we're like, making these prognostications as fans or whatever. The Jets have doctors also. Whether you agree with them or not, that's another story, but they have them. So we're going to get David Bakhtiari. And at 10, I'm pretty certain, actually, the Jets are going to freaking grab the best tackle available, who's not a pure right tackle. That's the whole point. Because if you get Talise Fuanga, he's only a right tackle, right? So you're going to look at someone who's purely a left tackle. If Alt goes, which it looks like he will, but Fashanu's there, you take Fashanu. But if Alt goes and Fashanu goes, then it gets a little more interesting. Do you look at J.C. Latham, who is a right tackle, and they're projecting could end up being a right guard, but has played left tackle before? Do you maybe reach potentially and think of him as a left tackle and grab him at 10? Or do you trade back in the draft, which is very interesting to me? Yes, and get a late second round pick. You trade back from 10 to 18. Maybe McCarthy's still available. Crap, maybe a team wants Penix and doesn't even want to risk him going into the 20s or, later on in the first. So they want to jump up and just grab their guy if they like Penix that much. So the Jets right now, with Morgan Moses coming here at right tackle, we have ultimate flexibility to kind of do what we want at 10. If a Dunze drops to 10, maybe we take a Dunze. But because I'm pretty certain we're bringing in Bakhtiari, Ryan, it puts us in a position that Bakhtiari could be slated as your left tackle, and then you're kind of playing around with everything else. You want George Fanton or you want another insurance tackle, even though Carter Warren potentially could be that swing tackle. It's yet to be known how Carter's going to be able to play left tackle.
Yeah.
But he was pretty serviceable at right tackle last year. Let's not kid ourselves. So maybe you could put Morgan Moses at left tackle if Bakhtiari goes down, and you could do that whole dance. I don't want to do it. I'm sick of the O-line dance. It's not cute. O-linemen aren't supposed to dance. I don't want to see it. But with that being said, Morgan Moses gives us a solidified 4-person line at this point, and we just need the 5th option. So if Fashanu's there, you take Olu Fashanu. You do not blink. Fuaga is out of the picture. These Mims and Guyton, they're right tackles, so they're going to go later on in the draft. They're potentially guards, teams are saying. Latham, you have more flexibility. And then maybe Fatanu, if you want to drop back, you can pick him up because he's a pure left tackle. So, and by the way, I only like Alton Fashanu, and then they're in their own tier. Then I like Latham. I don't like these other guys. So this old tackle draft, we have to be also a little bit careful because it is top heavy. It's very good at the top, but Mims, Guyton, Fatanu, they're a little bit of a prospect, as they call them. So
Yeah,
sorry
I
to
mean,
keep going on and on.
No. That's good. I mean, you ran through the options there. I think we've talked about this. I think it's a very deep offensive tackle class. So if you do want to go that route, which does seem like they could be hinting at, the Jets want to trade back, get that 2nd-round pick because they want to get more players to impact this roster. I don't know. If a Dunes drops to 10, I think that gets very interesting. I think they pull the trigger at 10 and say, let's grab another weapon for Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, Alt Fasciano, I mean, you look at the way this board's stacking in the top 10, you have to believe 4 quarterbacks are going. You have to believe 3 wide receivers are going. You're going to be stuck with either Alter Fasciano and possibly Brock Bowers too, depending on how you decide to attack the rest of this free agency. Because I would go after Tyron Smith. I think he's a stud, like I talked about last week.
Interesting.
This guy's he's so good. I think when he's healthy, he's one of the top 5 left tackles in football. It's your most important position on the offensive line. So if you could lock that in and then bring in Bakhtiari as his backup / insurance for both left and right tackle, I think that's the goal. But I don't know if they were willing to allocate that type of money there, which is a little concerning in its own right.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Not to play cap GM over here, but what would you pay Tyron Smith? Like if you had to pay him a number, would you give him $16 million a year on a 3-year deal?
I would.
Would you go up to 20?
No, I wouldn't go to 20. I would go 16, right. 17 around there.
Okay.
Because he has the injury concerns and he is a little bit older. He's 33, I think, or 34 years old. But again, he does produce when he's on the field. That's why you do pay him that type of money. But again, you bring Bakhtiari in as your insurance. That's a swing tackle that can go left or right tackle for you. And it's experienced left and right tackle for you as well to back up a Tyron Smith. But if you do bring in Bakhtiari and you don't get Tyron Smith, go after, let's talk about the next thing I want to say. Let's go after the wide receivers. The wide receiver market's getting very interesting.
Would be nice.
Mike Williams was released from the Chargers. There's rumors about Keenan Allen. Could he be released if he doesn't restructure his contract? They already restructured Bosa and Mack. There's rumors Keenan Allen could get released as well. I would like to see the Jets get Mike Williams or Keenan Allen if they could. If that's not possible, because you get priced out again, we hear rumors of MVS. You hear rumors of OBJ. And now we're getting rumors about Alan Lazard possibly getting dealt, as the Jets are apparently looking to trade him in his $10 million cap hit this year, or is it $11 million cap hit this year for Lazard?
I believe so, yeah.
I believe so. So, I mean, you get those rumors going now. Corey Davis might get brought back because he's coming back from retirement after 1 year. The Jets are releasing him, so he will be a free agent, but there's rumors he can come back to the Jets and replace Alan Lazard if they do trade Alan Lazard. So, Frankie, how do you see this wide receiver room taking shape with the Jets as currently things are starting to play out here?
Yeah, so I look at it from one lens. What is our receiving core going to look like with Corey Davis? With Alan Lazard, what is that wide receiver room going to look like? Because Alan Lazard is an ex-receiver that likes to run streak routes. Mike Williams is also an ex receiver that likes to run streak routes. Do you want them both on the field at the same time? What's happening underneath? You're gonna have Conklin underneath, and you're gonna have Garrett Wilson underneath as well. I mean, is that enough? You want Garrett Wilson also stretch the field. You don't want him constantly going underneath.
No.
Mike Williams and Alan Lazard are basically one trick ponies. I like the idea more if we get rid of Alan Lazard, because you want to give Aaron a deep threat. That's his strength. That's his bread and butter, throwing the ball deep. He loves to sit back there and find guys down the field. So if we're going to keep Alan Lazard, I would say no to Mike Williams. But if Alan Lazard is out of here, Mike Williams makes complete sense. That's why I've been talking about Tyler Boyd for as long as I have. And since, for weeks now that we've been on this show, I like Tyler Boyd. I love that slot guy. I love that guy that's able to find soft spots and zones and able to plan himself and just catch first downs and just move the chains. We need someone like that. You don't want to go into this season and have too much pressure on Garrett Wilson again. Teams are going to key on him. Aaron's going to constantly look his way. Nate Hackett's as creative as a 2-year-old. So what do you want? You want him to put together and mastermind some play calling that's gonna stun defensive coordinators? He's not gonna be able to do it. So what you need to do, you need to find some other receiver that's gonna be creative underneath and be able to run successful routes. Now there's players in this draft that can do that are great route runners, that are going to be able to figure out the game as they go. And our slot guys, like we've spoken about, Jacob Cowan, like Ricky Purcell, if we could find a way in the heavens to get Lade McConkey, which I highly doubt, but if that's possible. But there's guys out there. This draft is stacked. So at receiver. So, but if Lazard's here, you're just going to have to look at the slot for me. If Lazard's not here, then you can kind of open things up and kind of have your way.
Yeah, I mean, I think either way, Frankie, it's a draft that's loaded at tackle and wide receiver, which just so happen to be the two positions the Jets need desperately. Yeah. So would it shock you if this Jets team decides to sign one more tackle, draft another tackle with a premium position, sign another receiver, and draft another receiver again at a premium pick? Would that shock you if that's the decision to go forward with both those position groups?
It depends what kind of tackle we're talking about. If you're talking about a budget tackle, no, it wouldn't surprise me. But if you're talking about a Tyron Smith, you're talking about a Trent Brown that's going to want the big bucks, it would surprise me. I just don't see the Jets spending that much money right now on a left tackle when we're going into the draft with the 10th overall pick. That's my only thing. Now, I think they could sign, a budget guy, Isaiah Wynn or something? Yes, I do. But I mean, I don't see them signing one of the top available offensive tackles right now. I just don't see it because they have that 10th pick. You see with Joe Douglas, he got priced out of the guard market, and then he goes and he gets John Simpson. We don't know the terms yet, but they're saying it's about $18 million over a course of 2 years, something like that. That's a great value for a starting left guard that was blocking for the MVP last year. You team him up with his teammate, Morgan Moses. I mean, that makes sense. I don't see the Jets going out and now paying a tackle, drafting a tackle with that draft capital. Everything Joe Douglas does is based on the basis of value, financially, or when you're talking draft picks and draft assets attached to that player and what you could trade him for, what he's worth on the market, whether it's day one or day, the 600. That's why he loves to trade. He's a big trader. He looks at everything through a value lens. So I don't see him doing that. But listen, that's not a bad idea. I mean, the thing is, if you get Tyron Smith, why would you then draft a tackle at 10 and do what? Put him behind Tyron? Like, don't you want to start the kid? I'm all for, sitting a person for a year, but we're in this 2-year window, Ryan.
Right.
You want to sit a 10th pick that could potentially help you, and then you could spend that money on a receiver or a tight end maybe, or an edge. I want an edge. We'll never get one of those, but
no. We're not drafting an edge. No,
not drafting, but I'm down to get one that can get to the pass. We're losing out on 10 sacks, man, and 70 hurries like from Huff. We need someone to get pressure. Well, what if McDonald doesn't work out?
That's where I'm trying to say to you right now. And a lot of people were PO'd about Will McDonald draft pick last year. Obviously, the Jets screwed themselves with the Brock Bowers swapping first round picks with the Packers when they traded for Aaron Rodgers. They lost out on not Brock Bowers, sorry, on why am I drawing a blank? The Steelers tackle they took, Broderick Jones. They lost out on Broderick Jones, right? So that
Who's
kind
not
of
that good, by the way?
he's solid. He's solid. But
He's all right.
here's what I'm trying to say. Will McDonald didn't play this much this year. He developed, right? Now he's supposed to take over this position as our edge rusher, one of our premier edge
Yes,
rushers, which Jermaine Johnson. I think that's the way Joe Douglas is trying to build this thing through the draft. You want to take elite talent when you can and have them sit behind starters and learn a little bit if they're not going to be immediate impact guys. So why not take a swing at a Tyron Smith with a Bakhtiari and then draft Fuaga, because Moses is, believe it or not, only on a 1-year deal. This is it for him. So again, those are options. I think that's what Joe Douglas tries to do a little bit. I agree with the value thing, but I think he also tries to plug holes through free agency, and then that frees up his plans in the draft and saying, now we could take our best, best player at this number. We're
I
taking the
agree with
best,
that.
so again,
Can you do that though in this window, Ryan? Is that a
I think you
smart? Is that a
can
smart
because
idea? Yeah.
I think you can because there's actually 3 or 4 impact players you can get at 10, whether it be that starting left tackle, or if you don't sign a left tackle, obviously, or a Brock Bowers or a Roma Dunes. Like, those guys are there too at 10. If the draft happens to go the Jets' way,
Yeah.
those guys can make an impact with Aaron Rodgers in their rookie year. So I think that's the interesting thing of how they decide to go about the rest of this offseason. How do they take care of that wide receiver room, and how do they take care of that left tackle position? Those are the big ones I think everyone's going to be paying attention to as we move forward in free agency in the offseason.
I have a nugget for you. I'm going to give you a little nugget here. So I've been hearing a little bit of these murmurs. This isn't as sourced as the last thing I said, but I'm just hearing, I'm just speculating, I'm just thinking, I'm meditating. It's nice out. I was at Central Park. I'm feeling the vibes, the energy. Sometimes it's the best way to get, yourself going.
Absolutely.
Don't be surprised if the Jets look at wide receiver at 10, and don't be surprised if that receiver's not obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze, but Brian Thomas Jr., LSU wide receiver, who had a fantastic year last year and in some games looked more explosive than Malik Neighbors. I mean, people compare him to Justin Jefferson. If those Justin Jefferson comparisons keep building up until draft day and the Jets feel comfortable with Bakhtiari and maybe we sign another tackle and Isaiah Wynn or someone budget-wise to kind of plug that swing left tackle role, don't be surprised if the Jets take Brian Thomas Jr. at 10 and do not sign one of these wide receivers available. And then, I mean, listen, that is what you can do when you have Morgan Moses and you have your right tackle spot filled. Now you could get Brian Thomas Jr. at 10, or let's say if you wanted to Brock Bowers, hypothetically, and you're not handcuffing yourself and having to, be a prisoner for your O-line and having to get O-line. Like, the O-line's kind of working itself out in an odd way. Not the way we thought, but it's working itself out. So I'm just letting you know, Brian Thomas Jr., do not be surprised because he's getting a lot of buzz in a lot of places and a lot of people are talking about him.
It's interesting. I've heard that name too. And listen, I'm all for getting weapons for Aaron Rodgers, so that way this offense can be explosive. I do think they will still sign a wide receiver veteran, even if I think they're going to draft a wide receiver no matter what, whether it be in the first or third round. But I do think they will sign a wide receiver. And don't be surprised if it's Odell Beckham Jr. Don't be surprised if it's Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
You want Beckham?
It's not that I don't want him. I just think that Aaron Rodgers wants him and he trusts him. So if that's what he wants, Joe Douglas kind of is. If they trade Alan Lazard, like I think they're probably going to, I think they're going to try and bring back Corey Davis and sign an additional wide receiver just to keep that room being deep. And like we said, have a young guy get drafted and learn behind those guys and eventually make an impact, because that is how you build a successful franchise. You sign these free agents to fill in the holes for that 1 year, but you draft their replacements right the same exact year you signed them. So that way they're ready to go year 2, make an impact. So I get it. The immediacy of wanting to win now. I know this is it, the 1 to 2 year window we're looking at right now. Again, it all depends if Aaron Rodgers runs for vice president, though, Frankie.
Where do these reports even come from? And then the CNN report that came out about what he had said.
I don't want
not getting into that, but I'm just saying, like, it's funny how the day after Rodgers finally gets into politics It's like they have like a hit smear campaign, just
Listen, buddy.
laying on a silver platter. Like, yeah, maybe you should step away from politics, buddy. Like you've said enough in
Exactly.
the past. Like you got a lot of stuff to deal with.
Welcome to the politics world. Welcome to the
Welcome,
game.
brother. Welcome.
That's how they're going to do it. So again, we'll see how that plays out. All BS aside, I'll be interested to see how the Jets decide to address the rest of their team. And I know you are as well. We'll be tuned in. Appreciate you as always, Frankie, for discussing all this stuff, and always enjoy these talks, man.
Ryan, you're the best. I will say, do not forget about the running back position because that is something that we could use because of John Simpson's an above average run blocker. Morgan Moses is a very good run blocker. AVT is a good run blocker too. You don't want him pass setting too much. Let the big boys move forward. It's better for the Achilles in the lower, half. Let's run the hell out of the football. Let's get Brees a sidekick that can come in and we could just pound the rock. You got to do it in December. Got to do it in New York. Let's run the damn football. Get us a nice running back. Get one in the draft. There's some guys. I like Ray Davis as my sleeper, but get someone. There's running backs. Get someone and run the football. Don't put all this pressure on Aaron Rodgers. And please don't have Nate Hackett have to draw up too many passing schemes. Please let Nate Hackett make Nate's job easier. Please don't have him put anything together with route trees and whatnot. I don't want to see it. Let him just run the football. HB dive or a stretch. Let's cook. Sorry, I had to
Well
get
said,
that out.
Frankie. You're the man.
You are the man. No, you're the man. You invited me on the show, so you're the man.
You're the best, Frank. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Ryan.